What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and today we have my friend Ryan's Striker Draco deck profile that I hit platinum with. Ended up going 12-1 on the ladder, against a good chunk of decks. You know how the ladder is. There's a ton of stuff flying around. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. Take it away.
Uh, yeah, I'm playing Striker Draco. I played this deck when it was relevant in the TCG, and I felt like it could be good in Master Duel just due to the resources that we had. The main resource being Card Demise at 3. So I'll go ahead and just get into the deck. Obviously, Triple Ray. Rose isn't needed as much in this deck. You could play one or two of it. But with Demise, you don't want too many monsters in the deck, which is why we're also not playing Hand Trap. So I just felt like there wasn't a need for me to have the Rose in the deck. Only two Ignis search spells, and again, Demise, you don't want too many. And the same thing with Dynamite. Probably the best True Draco monster besides Masterpiece, just because it searches traps. Obviously are insane. So one terraforming, this card is not needed, but if you draw it, you can get into the diagram. But if you already have the diagram, you can get into the area 0 to combo off with your Draco spells and traps. So triple card of Demise, don't really think I need to explain this card. Draw 3 is insane. 2 engaged, I don't think I need to explain this either. It's at 2 for a reason. One Afterburner and one Jamming Waves. So in most lists, you're actually not playing these because you have the spell and trap pops with the Draco spells and traps. And then you also have the pops with the traps for the monsters. But I wanted more spell cards to be able to activate when I needed to clear cards out of my hand for Demise, or if I needed more spells engraved for Engage. Like, for example, when you're going second, you can only set a certain, like, you have 6 cards. If they're all spells and traps, you can't set all of them and activate Demise, right? So you want to be able to play your cards still. Try and clear cards off your opponent's board and Demise. So I just felt like these are really good. And then these also help trigger some of your Draco spells and traps. Because you can like Jamming Waves your own trap to clear a monster on their board, or you can Afterburner clear your Draco monster, or well, you can't Afterburner your Draco monster because you can't activate Afterburner in the main monster zone.
Mm-hmm.
But you can Afterburner your Striker card and then pop one of your traps or pop one of your spells to clear a potential problematic card as well. So one Hercules base. Again, you don't really play this that much in the Draco variant, but I felt myself losing a lot of resources due to Kagari being at 1, and you just need to shuffle it back. So, and there are times that you can just go for game with the double attack with like a Kagari that's over 2k. You can go like Kagari with like 2 Draco monsters, and sometimes it's enough for game. So one diagram, don't need to explain this. 2 area 0. 3 felt like it was too cloggy with set rotation being banned. If set rotation was unbanned, then maybe I would play 3 of this, but for now we're just going to go ahead and play 2. Only 2 of each Draco spell. You don't want to draw too many of them. They are searchable with Ignis and obviously Diagram, and they Disciples recycles them, so there was no need really to play 3. 2 multi-roll. This is probably the best card of the deck because it triggers pretty much everything. Like this card is insane. It helps you clear your True Draco cards off the board to activate your Striker stuff. It's a free spell pop or trap pop. It's a free monster pop if you have the trap. It's very good. 1 Hornet Drones, it's at 1. 2 Widow Anchor, it's at 2. If this card was at 3, I would probably bump it up to 3. But there was never a time I really needed the 3rd, so it's fine. Okay. 1 Eagle Booster, kind of self-explanatory. We want to go into our big boy, and we want to make sure our big boy can survive. So double Shark Cannon, this just helps you get into the big boy. It also Eldritch is everywhere on the ladder, so you just clear Eldritch cards. As for the traps, I am playing 2 torrential. The reason I'm playing torrential is number one, it helps you if I really have to, I can clear my Draco stuff off the board. Just so I can activate some of my better cards, right? Because like Widow Anchor is such an insane card, and same with Shark Cannon. Like they're both very strong, and you can't activate them when you have stuff in the main monster zone. But obviously, the secondary reason is we have so many decks that are spamming summons. Torrential is just a good out for them.
Yeah, people don't really play around that card or don't respect
No,
it enough.
not at all. The same way that I don't respect Nibiru.
Dude, it's real. It's
It's real.
there. I've been Nibiru'd once and I lost.
What's crazy about this deck too? It plays around Nibiru very well because you can just you can use your normal summon to summon this. You're gonna use an additional normal to summon this. When you use the additional normal, pop spell, you pop area 0, summon Ray.
That's
You go
very
battle
good.
phase, and it's 79, but because you have a spell engrave, you just tag the Ray out into Gagari, and it's over 8k at that point.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's
yeah.
those are some pretty important damage numbers then.
To return, it's more of a defensive card in this deck because you're just going to use your Apocalypse to pop it, or if they do out your board, you don't get ganked because you can return and revive one of your boys. So, triple Apocalypse, and then last but not least, 2. There can only be 1. Sitting on just a Striker monster with pretty much every card doing something in the deck. You will win most of your matchups. Eldritch can't play around the There Can Only Be 1 unless they have the Golden Lord in hand. So if they have the Lord on board, they don't have a conk set, you just flip the There Can Only Be 1. They can never conk you, and they can never Hakero you. So, yeah.
Floodgates.
That's it for the main deck. 40 cards. Extra deck. I'm not going to explain any of the strikers. You optimize the amount of striker cards you have, right? 1 Nightmare Phoenix. This card is actually to out Skill Drain, Monarch's Erupt, things like that. And the way that you out them is you make the Phoenix, you go Chainlink 1 Phoenix, and then Chainlink 2 Eagle Booster to make the Phoenix unaffected by card effects. And Phoenix outs most Floodgates. 1 Hida. Hida is for the Striker mirror match, but also you can make a Hida, and like especially if you know your opponent's going to out it, and Hida gets to add Ignis because it has less than 1500 defense. So you get it's another way to guarantee your Draco card. We are playing the win because there's a lot of bird on the ladder, and obviously the mirror match you can steal a Hayate. And it's very good. It's very strong.
What's the defense on Dynamite?
Dynamite's defense is 12, so you could play the water one, but there's not enough water decks on the ladder to.
That's true.
Like not enough relevant water decks
it's
anyway.
Like Crystron Halka Fibrax is the only thing. Do you have to take leveled monsters with the Charmers?
No, because you can summon back a Kagari in the mirror match.
Yeah, right now I think the only thing that's relevant is the Hulk then.
Yeah, Hulk, and then like maybe Mermail Hand Loop, but it's not an actual relevant deck, so. And then I guess technically Shizuku in the mirror match, but it doesn't come up like the
Hayate is just better to take.
Yeah, the Hida and the Wind come up more in certain matchups than any of the other Charmers do, in my opinion. You could make an argument for Asa, but no need to. Obviously, 1 Zeke.
You're not playing so.
We are playing the Ningirsu because of the Charmers. You can steal an opponent's Link monster and then make a Ningirsu. You can out your own card. It's very good. And then if you have an additional summon, you get to make your big boy. 1 Unicorn, kind of the same thing with Phoenix. You get to out big, cards. And then last but not least, one of your game killers access code. And that's it for the deck.
How hard do you find it is to get into access code in this deck? Because you're not playing the way to ladder up in like Selene access code or Hulk Selene access code.
Surprisingly not that hard. It's very easy to get into access code versus Boral Sword. I was originally playing Boral Sword because that's what I played back when the deck was relevant in 2018, 2019. And Yeah, with the Boral Sword, the reason why it was good is because we had triple Widow Anchor. We don't have triple Widow Anchor, so sometimes the numbers just don't match up, and
Mm-hmm.
you just can't kill. Versus you can shark cannon a lot of your opponent's stuff and widow their stuff. You have so many ways to normal summon additional cards with the Draco spells.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also get a Ray, so you can make this very easily. Have a Ray and have a Draco still on the board, and it be used summoning a Link 3. So it's fairly easy to do. I've only really ever had to access code one person though.
Really? Wow.
It hasn't come up because you get to clear a lot of their resources with your traps and
Mm-hmm.
your spells. So there's never a time that it feels like it's super needed.
Yeah, Dynamite and Ignis are pretty big too.
Yeah. Especially under diagram where they can't be destroyed once per turn by battle, and they become 27 and 28 respectively. Just very good.
Yeah. How
Uh,
often? Oh yeah, go ahead.
and then I was gonna say the Apocalypse cutting all of your opponent's cards in half,
Mm,
and it's permanent
yeah.
it's just insane.
Yeah, that card's pretty nutty.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. How often did the Card of Demise and your Sky Striker plays conflict with each other?
So they actually didn't. Funny enough, a big part of it was activating Demise. I would draw into a Ray, and then I would just normal summon the Ray, and then set
Jesus
the rest of my
Christ.
cards and pass.
You go, bro.
Yeah, and honestly, being able because on your opponent's turn, we're like if they do absolutely nothing, they just like set 4 pass or set 5 pass, right?
Hmm.
You just end phase Ray, summon the Shizuku. Shizuku adds jamming waves, engage, whatever you need, right?
Yeah.
To out a card. Or if they do go like battle phase, you know you have a way into the engage, or you maybe even have the engage set. Then you go battle phase, you summon the Hayate, you guarantee the dump.
Oh, true.
Or you tag out summon the Kaina to guarantee that you don't get OTK'd. So it never really conflicted. The only time Demise really conflicts with anything is when I draw 1, 2, 3. If I draw
Yeah.
3 monsters, it's rough. But there are ways around that if I have the Draco spells and traps. So
Hmm.
yeah, it wasn't too much of a conflict though, thankfully.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, this deck seems really cool, especially with honestly, how cheap everything in this deck is. The Striker core, I think a lot of people have built into at this point.
Yeah.
And the Draco stuff is what? There's Diagram and Dynamite. Are those the only two super rares in this deck?
They're the only 2 super rares for the Draco stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, if you're gonna be playing Striker, you're gonna have all the SR Striker stuff and UR Striker stuff already, right?
Yeah.
Like, so just channeling into the rest. I mean, yeah, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 additional SRs. Granted, the 2 there can only be ones being URs, but you
You
can
play that
play
in
other
Striker.
gates if you don't want to craft that there can only be ones. These
I'm
can be summon limits. These can be rivalries. These can be Gozens. Whatever you
mm,
need them to be.
yeah. Well, I think Tikaboo is okay here too because you do play that in like a pure Striker list. So I would imagine like anyone who's built into Striker already had their
Probably
eyes
has
on
them.
picking those
Yeah.
cards up. So I don't think it's too much of a reach to think you already had it. Um, yeah, say you had unlimited gems, right? Unlimited UR gems. Is there anything in this deck that you would upgrade to something else?
Yeah, Royal Rare engages.
Oh yeah. Just sit there
No,
crafting until you get.
until I get up. Yeah, no, there was never really anything else I needed. I have a Celine already because I play Pure Striker.
Mhm.
And you can technically make the Celine using
The
using these because
charmers.
they're spellcasters.
Yeah.
But for me, like if I needed to out a card, Celine wasn't the way to do it.
Mhm.
The Ningirsu being able to non-target send just came up. It has come up way more.
Okay.
Because you can't like for example, if they have a 3500 Golden Lord, right? You can attack over it, but you can't access code it. You can't pop it with trap.
Yeah.
So if you can just Ningirsu send which came up a couple of times, you can just attack them for game at that point. Like you don't have to worry about the additional cards.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Ningirsu is a pretty powerful removal card in this game.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean,
and
okay then.
it's
If you feel like the
it's
deck is like locked in, then
yeah. I feel like there's not really like I said, like maybe you could these three would be the only cards you could maybe swap around.
Mhm.
But they never there was never a time where I was like, man, these cards suck. Like there was
Yeah.
never a time where I was like, I don't want to draw these cards.
It's nice having really flexible removal options in your deck at all times. And then
Yeah.
like you were saying, the base to shuffle back Kagari is like pretty important. Like you definitely feel the one Kagari, I think, in a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
decks, especially where you're teching Striker as like your side engine. If you only need to go through the Striker cards once, like one Kagari is like fine, but if you want to keep playing Striker turn after turn, you don't have the resources to keep up with the your Striker engine unless you put the Kagari back.
If you're ever under Imperial Order, right? Because you there
True.
are ways to clear your Hercules base, even under IO.
Hmm.
Like you can activate the Hercules base or set the Hercules base, set a spell, tribute summon, clear the Hercules base to recycle your triple Hayate. Because there are times when you're under IO, that Hayate for game comes up so much that you have to have more than 3 copies.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Um, while you were playing this deck, what did you find to be the deck's biggest strengths, biggest weaknesses, hardest matchups, easiest matchups, things like that?
I would say its hardest match. It and not to sound big headed, but I'm gonna sound a little bit big headed. I thought the hardest matchup would be Eldritch,
Hmm.
just because floodgates are hard. Like skill drain, IO, they're very hard,
Yeah, it goes in
and that's one
rivalry.
reason why I converted from playing Striker to Striker Draco
Hmm.
is to be able to out those floodgates way easier. Um, and with like I thought Eldritch would be my hardest matchup, but in the record, the 12-1, I played against 3 Eldritch decks, and I only lost to the third one. I beat the other two.
Hmm.
I lost to the third one because he resolved grass and he had IO after he resolved grass. So it was just like the unfortunate circumstance of, man, I lose because I can't. I like chain shark cannon, and then he chained IO, and I was like,
Oh
well,
my
all right, bet.
god.
And then he also had before that he had Zombie World face up on the field, so I couldn't get into my Draco engine
Oh yeah,
sooner
you
than I wanted
contribute
to.
anything onto yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say hardest, technically speaking, hardest matchup should be Eldritch, but it gets a lot easier with the Draco cards.
Okay. What matchup do you just dumpster? Like you queue into a game and you're like, oh, locked up, easy.
The easiest matchup is Dragon Maid. The easiest, that deck is so easy to dumpster because you
What
just
the?
you flip. First of all, there can only be one.
Oh, you just flip the floodgate. Yeah,
You just
yeah,
flip the floodgate, right? But
yeah.
also, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna press for advantage," right? Like his
Mhm.
monster's only 2,500. I have a bunch of 27 beaters. I'll just attack over it, and then you go, yeah, I'm gonna cut everything in
Apocalypse.
half."
Yeah,
And they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, dude, that's not supposed to be there."
that's true. They do put up a lot of board pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That deck has been like honestly kind of smacking me. I don't
It's been
know.
on the ladder so much that
Yeah,
originally before I started playing the deck, I threw rivalry in here, and I was like, this
this
is
does
good, and then I was like, nah, we need the there can only be one for
this does
for
nothing.
yeah, exactly. And rivalry doesn't do anything against Eldritch either. Like
Yeah,
there can only be one just shuts down so many of the decks that even with floodgates, like
I've
the
I've noticed it
Eldritch
too.
just doesn't do anything under a there can only be one.
There's a lot of decks on the ladder right now that can really easily play around like goes in rivalry. Like if you're playing against Salad, if you're playing against Dragon Maids, if you have the wrong floodgates, right? Where
Mhm.
Tikaboo is almost always relevant, except maybe the Striker matchup it's a little less relevant.
Yeah.
But Yeah, no, it's a really good card.
I
We'll just
would I would say the
yeah.
hardest deck this deck probably has a hard time against is Thunder. Colossus um
Mm,
is very
mm.
good. But we
You
do
do a
play
lot of
quite a
drawing.
bit to get around it, right? We have
Yeah.
the Widow Anchors, Demises draws, it doesn't search. We are able to cut it in half. We can banish the resources, right?
Oh yeah.
It is the hardest matchup though because Colossus is such a good card and can protect itself.
Yeah, the destruction protection's pretty crazy against your deck. Like you really, it's really your anchors and then your Ningirsu may. Oh, and then also Zeke. Zeke, right? Did
Yeah,
we
Zeke,
have?
Zeke can out it. Yeah,
We didn't have Zeke the last time Colossus was out, right? And for
no,
TCG.
Zeke. Yeah, Zeke.
Yeah.
Zeke came out 2020, I think,
Mm,
or 2021, one of the two. And yeah, we
that
haven't had
seems right.
Colossus
Yeah.
since like 2019. So
All right. Cool. Well, thank you very much for this pretty cool deck. Honestly, like seeing this deck in action is pretty nice. Was there anything else that you wanted to add before we sign off here?
no, man, I appreciate you letting me get the profile. It was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Ryan, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time.